Okay, anyhow, let me thank Professor Sarfraz Ahmed Khan and also Shailendra sir. At the same time, the various luminaries in relation to the space law, aviation law, and also various participants for today in relation to this particular one-day international seminar on privatization of space sector in India, issues and challenges. So my topic for presentation is public-private partnership in the development of space infrastructure in India, an international perspective. Now, really, actually, since morning I was hearing, and it was a wonderful presentation by each and everyone, where they have spoken about the fruit. Where they have spoken about the fruit means what in the space, what you are going to do, exploration, exploitation, at the same time mining, tourism, medical research, and also precious metals you want to bring from there for research purposes. Everything is good. It was in relation to the fruit where all the participants have discussed very well and wonderful. But I am going to discuss about the root now. The root is the infrastructure. Very recently, Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, during her budget session, she has stated that future projects for planetary exploration and outer space travel will be open for the private sector. It's good. Making statements is very easy, but do we have many things to add so as to go there into space to explore, as Professor Bhatt sir has stated? So now, when this is the thing here, the root is in relation to the development of the space infrastructure. Unless until there is an infrastructure, well-developed infrastructure, we cannot go into the orbit, nor we can do any explorations. There must be a robust, there must be a strong infrastructure at the root level so that you can get the fruit at a later level. So now in this, my research paper explores. It explores three things. Number one, explores reasons why public sector space stakeholders want to pursue a PPP model for delivering services, infrastructure, and innovation. This word infrastructure relates to the technological commercialization, number one, and number two, commercialization and commercial development here. So technological commercialization and commercial development, both the things are included under the word infrastructure. And number two, it proposes a phased approach for strategizing, planning, and implementing PPP delivery models along with guiding principles of neutrality, transparency, accountability, and governance. So here, when you are speaking about the PPP delivery models, at the international level, we are having 19 international models. I'll give an example like BOOT, BOOT, that is build, own, operate, and transfer. And this is a type of transaction known as CIC, Complex International Contracts, where is a project of minimum 5 to 10 years. So there is a phased approach for strategizing this type of PPP to be taken into consideration in the development of this space infrastructure. And number three is examining the case studies, including successful or unsuccessful PPP models, offering lessons. Today we are going straight away into the PPP. Now, what are the lessons learned by the US? What were the lessons learned by the EU in relation to bringing this PPP model by which they went into the development? Whether they were successful or unsuccessful, at later level I will discuss here. So now the next question here is, what is a public-private partnership? The word public denotes that the government or the government agency, and the word private denotes a private investor, maybe a domestic investor, maybe a foreign investor. So because today government is unable to bring out these projects independently, it requires hand, because in 1990s, an initiative has taken place in relation to the liberalization, privatization, and globalization, where India is not at all an exception to this concept. So now we have to explore by which we have entered into PPP like the international airports in Hyderabad and Mumbai under the Greenfield policy, and Mumbai and Delhi international airports under Brownfield policy. So like that, does we have any policies to this effect? So like this here, when you speak about this, it is a public-private PPP is a long-term contractual yet cooperative agreement between a public agency and a private sector entity with agreed to duties, risk and rewards in which both government and the private party have an interest. So in this case here, when you speak that both the parties, when they have entered, the share of a private investor is always high, the stake is always high, more than 76%, by which the risk is shared by the private person. So now you can go to the PPT number 12, please. I request you to, because, you please stop there. Now, so I discussed about the research paper, what it explores, and what is public-private partnership, and why the government has preferred this public-private partnership, because it is budgetary constraint, number one. Because whatever the budget the government is having, it has to cater the needs of various sectors, whether it is airports or space or railways or seaports, health, education, national highways, so on and so forth. So putting a high investment in one sector is nothing but the other sector will be losing a balance of economic development. For this reason here, due to the budgetary constraints, lengthy procedure in floating a project. If a government wants to float a project, today it has to float a tender, whether it is under the Central Vigilance Commission rules or if it is international, it has to go for the World Bank rules. So if on January 1st, if a tender is floated, January 1st, 2021, you can easily say that a contract, a PPP contract can be signed on January 1st, 2022, 1 year. In 1 year, there may be number of problems, taxes, labor laws, various type of problems will occur by which the price, the bidding price may go up. So instead of this, it is for the common good, it is for the public, by which the private person is taken into consideration. There is no need to go for a lot of lengthy procedure like floating a tender, by which the private person can go ahead directly and he can take note of top 10 personal companies and start with the project. So the private person has the capital. Why the government has preferred? Because the private person is having the capital, technical know-how, innovation, efficiency, managerial skills, accountability, transparency, etc. So delivering these services or infrastructure is in a timely manner is the mantra of a private person here when compared to the government, because government is laid up and fed up with what various types of procedures to be adopted in bringing out a project into limelight. So the government prefers to reduce upfront capital exposure because the private person is coming here. So it can save that type of capital and it can transfer that capital for another development or another sector's development. Now, why PPP in space sector is the next question for us. Because building modern, sustainable and reliable infrastructure is critical for meeting the rising aspirations of billions of people around the globe. Hence, this PPP could help to enhance the social benefits of the communication satellites. In our childhood, parents' childhood, my childhood, there's only one landline. But today, a family consisting of 5 members are having 5 smartphones. So it means what? The satellites are functioning. So it means there's a communication system going on between the persons. Today, internet, IoT is there, Internet of Things are there, artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain technology, various type of technologies are there which are based purely upon these communication system or the satellites or those things which are sent in the orbit, functioning and operating in the space. So now the next point to be noted here is why, what includes the space infrastructure? Now my question is directly, when you speak about infrastructure, now in India we always go for the roads, laying of the highways. If the roads are good, then the transport system is good. and the goods will not be damaged, not be destroyed, and it reaches very safely. So it means it must reach, anything which is being sent must reach the destination safely. Under these circumstances here, the space infrastructure means and includes spacecraft hardware, software, and components, system integration, spacecraft payload integration, space robotics, communications and Earth observation satellites that bridge low Earth orbit, geostationary orbit, and deep space orbits. Next, space exploration mission spacecraft. On-orbit satellite servicing vehicles. Today in our world-class airports, we are having MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhauling system. In the same way here, must also have satellite servicing vehicles, robotics for ongoing space operations and exploration, spacecraft chambers, flight software labs, assembly and test area. So it means a huge land is required, it is to be acquired to go for a very good PPP project in relation to the space infrastructure. So under these circumstances here, when an international airport where a land of 5,500 acres is being used for a space infrastructure, it requires more than 25,000 acres of land, by which you can see the development of the space infrastructure in such a way that we will be one among the other countries. So PPP in space infrastructure, what are the key objectives? Number one is a mission support to advance science, space exploration or national security and defense. And number two, functional support is required, such as a communication, observation, or developing new technology. Then space industrial base, as today we are having special economic zones. In the same way, we must also have space industrial base to promote a competitive and robust commercial space sector. For now, however, the space sector is undergoing a rapid change, and it makes sense that the government, commercial sector, research and innovation, collaboration are becoming popular today. So the next question here is, why PPPs in space infrastructure is pursued by the government? Because we have stated that the government is seeking to expand their capabilities for satellite communications, navigation, Earth monitoring, exploration systems, and other space applications. Recognize this is significant role that the private sector can play in delivering these capabilities at reduce the cost and the risk through public-private partnership. So these things can be catered only if it is meted out only where a private party enters with the government by way of a partnership. And efficiency gains, reduce life cycle costs, transfer the risk, innovation and technology alignment with space policy goals. All this can be pursued by the government by giving away the task to the private personality. So why private party pursues this public-private partnership here? Why private is interested? Because a high return on the investments, gain competitive advantage. So when you speak about the space activities at the global level, only 3 or 4 players are there. Airbus is there. Okay, at the same time, Lockheed is there. Boeing is there. These are the companies which are coming forward in relation to the space activities. So if you want to tap these type of personalities, because the techno-based personalities are available, and those persons technically, financially, okay, both must be brought into consideration so as to make the PPP a success at the Indian level. Now, when you speak about the mechanisms, I told you that various mechanisms are being operated at the international level under the PPP system. I gave you an example like BOOT, B-O-O-T, build, own, operate and transfer. At the same time, in the space sector, operations and maintenance is a type of mechanism being applied in relation to the PPP projects in the space activities. Operation, maintenance and management, that is OMM. In the same way here, if you take the US, the public-private partnership, they have used the mechanism that is a design, operate, build, finance and manage. So this is the type. So it means any type of mechanism which is feasible for the parties in a PPP, that is to be taken into consideration, but it is not at all okay. We cannot say that it is 100% safe unless until you go for experiment. Later on, we will be knowing, in spite of taking these type of operations and maintenance mechanism under the PPP for the development of the space activities at the international level by the US, they have failed. So those are the lessons which are to be learned. So what is the market forecast? All those things we will be discussing here. So when you take this particular lessons to be learned, one example I can give you where it is a strategized market assessment, forecast, and business model concept. Actually, in this case, one company, NGA company, okay, there was a contract for 10 years in relation to the development of the space activities, and one of the clause which states that either of the party can terminate the contract at any time. Can you use that type of? So under these circumstances, the party has terminated the contract by which the whole project went into doldrums. So huge loss was sustained. Now the lesson learned in this particular NGA, Enhanced View program, was the government should conduct a comprehensive review of a commercial partner's business plan, including market forecast. If a private person is coming forward to the government must have a comprehensive review of the person. Today, when we are giving our daughter to a person to marriage a proposal, are we not checking everything? So we must also see that what is the status of the company, what is the background of the company. Okay, any losses have been sustained. So the government is having the authority, having a responsibility to go through all those things here. If not, before completion of the contract or before completion of the project here, it may lead to a disaster stage. So another example also I can give you, that is in relation to plan, leverage the seed money for the development of a private sector capability and select 2 or more partners to encourage the competition and hedge risk. Now in this one of the case it happened where the government has invited 2 parties. So 2 parties, some seed money is given. Later on what happened here, other company has purchased this company to whom the seed money was given. So these type of things which happens, then what happens here, the lesson which was learned by the government was, the government used the PPP arrangements to essentially act as a venture capitalist. Early seed funding allows the project to grow. Once the project is operating well, the government can step back. So this is not the thing of a public-private partnership. If the government is backing off, if the government is withdrawing, so there is no meaning in relation to the agreement which they have signed coming within the ambit of the words of public-private partnership. Now, what are the key challenges here? Now, the challenges are the capital, including taxation, insurance and indemnification, liability, including quantum and possible sovereign guarantee issues. So, where there is a launch in relation to a spacecraft, accidentally it hits an aircraft in the mid-air, or it falls on so place where public dies. So who is responsible? So sovereign guarantee is there or not? Management of technical risk, regulatory certainty, including issues of authorization, establishment of continuing supervision mechanisms are to be, these are the various challenges here, and the safety and security of space assets and the dispute resolution mechanisms. These are the key challenges for us to go ahead. And what are the emerging legal issues? Do we have a regulatory mechanism? Professor Bhatt was right in saying that do we have a law today? So these type of activities, now when once they have announced that we are going for the private sector, the space sector is now open for the private sector. Where is the law? I am going to a shop without money and without a debit card. Can I purchase the goods? It is this thing which was happened very recently when the finance minister has stated that we are opening the doors for the private sector without a law. So it means regulatory mechanism not available to govern space-related PPP projects in India. This is the first part. Number 2, new models of privatization is to be explored. Why? Because at the Western level, European level, they have applied various types of mechanisms and they have burned their hands where we should not continue the same thing. And we have to see what is the viability in relation to the public-private partnership mechanism to be adopted, by which we can have a fruitful project by which the citizens of a country can be satisfied. Then the modification in the digital law, that is relating to the network development, regulations pertaining to applications, big data law, regulation and competition law in the digital market, security of networks and data. So when once you are bringing this PPP, other laws must also be restructured. They must be brought, some amendments must be carried on. Transportation law. So one of our foreign delegates, sir, was discussing about in relation to the aviation law. You are right, because when once the space shuttle is sent into the space, when once it returns, enters into the air, immediately the rules and regulations of the ICAO should be followed, even though it went into the space and it has entered. Why? Because the Chicago Convention 1944 speaks about the scheduled and non-scheduled aircraft, by which it can be deemed as a non-scheduled aircraft, by which the rules can be applied, like the certification, protection of the passengers, airworthiness certificate, so on and so forth. So there is no conflict here, because when once it entered into the air, till it is in the air law should be applied, because we are not having other types of laws. So the liability issues is also very, very important here. And if anything goes wrong, are our insurance companies ready to work for this? Are able to know? Because they must go at the international level for the reinsurance of that particular area, space aircraft, if anything goes wrong. So reinsurance is a component by which they have to have a tie-up with international companies. If not, all the companies will collapse. So they must have a strong insurance background also, and the liabilities should also be curbed in such a way that it should not lead to any disastrous position. Whatever the investment is there, it should not be more than the investment, the liability here. And finally, my conclusion here is regulatory mechanism is in the space activities in India is the need of the hour. So very importantly, at the root level today, we are thinking about tourism. Very good, you can go. But at the lower level, do we have the law? Do we have the, first of all, relating to space laws, except 4 treaties, except 1 treaty, the 4 treaties we have signed, no doubt. But at the local level, municipal law, do we have? Are we comfortable with this? When you're not comfortable, first of all, at the ground level, we have to work out and bring out the legislations. Then we have to think of the public-private partnership in the space infrastructure activities. So policy protection to the investors. Are we giving any protection to the international investors? We say FDI, foreign direct investment. So what type of protection we are giving? So again, the norms are to be taken into consideration, brought into consideration specifically for the space. And greenfield, brownfield policy is the need of the hour. That type of thing we are not having except in the aviation sector. Restructuring of various laws like digital law, transportation law, etc. Liability issues pre-launch and post-launch. Dispute resolution mechanism. It means if the above factors which just I have discussed are taken into consideration, then we can say that there is a public-private partnership in the development of space infrastructure in India, taking note of the international scenario. With this, I end. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. I have given some information about the public-private partnership here. At the root level, the government has to think a lot, and if not, thinking about exploring something there, I hope there is no meaning at all in this case. So legal regime is to be first mantra to be developed here. Then only we can think about the explorations or exploitations or doing anything in the space. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all for giving me this opportunity.